Going to bring it from 25% to 50%, the tariffs on steel into the United States of America.
We must diversify our trade relationships. And above all, we must rely more on Canadian steel for Canadian projects.
Imagine waking up to find the backbone of America's industry cut off overnight. No warning, no negotiation, just silence. One midnight announcement, and by sunrise, factories stalled, prices soared, and leaders scrambled behind closed doors. If you drive a car, depend on a paycheck, or care where this economy is headed, this story isn't just news, it's your future. So what happened? It started with a single late-night press release. Quietly posted, instantly viral. Canada announced the immediate suspension of all steel exports to the United States. No grace period, no explanation, just a vague reference to trade enforcement. Within 30 minutes, traders froze transactions. Within an hour, steel futures jumped 20%. By morning, every headline said the same thing. America's steel supply had just been shut off at the source. Steel isn't just a product. It's the skeleton of every car, truck, and factory machine. Canada provides nearly a quarter of America's steel, and with one stroke, that supply was gone. Inside boardrooms, executives panicked. Do we have backup stock? How long before this hits the lines? The answers came fast, and they weren't good. There was no backup, no reserve, no plan B. This wasn't a disruption. It was a kill shot. Let's break it down in today's video. Note, this video is an independent analysis based on public sources. It does not represent any organization or political stance. We encourage you to think critically and share your thoughts in the comments. At a stamping plant in Ohio, the second shift never clocked in. Workers already suited up got a single text. Shift canceled. Await update. Forklifts sat loaded, engines half assembled. But the steel from Hamilton never arrived. Silence took over the factory floor. Jason Melendez, a 27-year-old welder, stared at his phone in disbelief. "We've never missed a day," he muttered. No protests, no shouting, just boots crunching on gravel as workers walked back to their cars. The plant had been running at full tilt, and now half-built vehicles sat stranded. No steel meant no shells. No shells meant no cars. And no cars meant no paychecks. Here's the hard truth. Modern supply chains don't bend, they break. And once they break, recovery isn't measured in days. It's measured in collapses. Meanwhile, in Detroit, executives weren't asking how bad, they were asking how fast. Ford, GM, Stellantis, all realized the same thing. We build 80% of our vehicles here. One VP snapped. So why are we this exposed? The procurement map gave the answer. Nearly 60% of their steel came straight from Canada. Made in America was just a slogan. Behind it lay dependence. Canada's move wasn't random. It was deliberate. Ottawa's cabinet made the call in silence. They imposed tariffs without warning, Canada's trade minister said. So, we shut off the lifeline. Prime Minister Mark Carney signed the order. No press, no speeches. Just action. For decades, Canada played the quiet partner. But years of tariffs and political pressure left scars. Now, instead of being dictated to, Canada flipped the script. With one decision, it reminded the U.S., who controls the steel veins that keep its economy alive. So here's the question. Was this a warning shot, or the opening move of something much bigger? It didn't begin as an attack on America. It began as a wake-up call, proof that even the strongest supply chains can crumble when they rest on foreign ground. And this time, Canada wasn't asking politely. It was laying down terms. The world took notice. European automakers rushed to review contracts. Asian manufacturers scrambled for backup suppliers. The shock wasn't just economic, it was psychological. Detroit shook, but the tremors spread worldwide. Factories went dark. The call came just before lunch. Ernesto Guzman, logistics director at a steel part supplier in Monterrey, Mexico, picked up the phone, expecting routine updates. Instead, he heard the devastating news. A precision-milled steel shipment from Canada was canceled mid-transit. No explanation. No replacement. Within 4 hours, his entire production line shut down. "We build subframes for US-bound SUVs," he said. "You stop us, and 5 more factories stop with us." By nightfall, it wasn't just Mexico's problem. Brazil, Japan, and Germany all felt the squeeze. Canadian steel isn't just traded. It's embedded into global production. With its flow severed, Toyota reported part delays in Nagoya. Volkswagen rerouted through South Korea, and Sao Paulo's auto cluster froze operations. This was no longer a trade dispute. It was a global disruption with no reset button. Steel went from abundant to scarce in days. And Canada wasn't finished. A leaked memo from its trade ministry revealed Phase 2, targeted economic compression. Instead of a broad embargo, Canada would restrict niche steel grades, used in battery casings, aerospace tubing, and EV drivetrains. These weren't easy to replace. Certification windows stretched months. A missing bracket could derail entire vehicle lines. The strategy wasn't a hammer, it was a sniper shot. The U.S. never saw it coming. Import codes vanished from customs systems. Aerospace suppliers raised alarms. EV makers faced unexplained gaps in parts. By the time Washington realized this was Phase 2, damage was spreading fast. On Capitol Hill, whispers grew. This wasn't retaliation anymore. It was punishment. Washington snapped. In a fiery press conference, the U.S. Trade Representative announced a sweeping tariff strike, up to 50% penalties on Canadian metals. No exceptions. The message: if Canada played hardball, America would bring the sledgehammer. But the hammer hit home first. Prices spiked. U.S. steelmakers, already at capacity, couldn't ramp up. Compliance costs, equipment shortages, and labor gaps ate into profits. Cleveland-Cliffs projected a $300 million quarterly loss despite the tariff advantage. Automakers warned of layoffs. Home builders froze contracts. Even craft breweries reported aluminum delays. A tariff meant to punish Canada rippled back into the U.S. economy with crushing force. Meanwhile, foreign rivals moved in. Toyota quietly rerouted sourcing through Southeast Asia, shifted exports toward Europe and the Middle East, and scaled up hybrid production overseas. Hyundai followed suit. German automakers accelerated EV lines beyond North America. Global industry wasn't collapsing, it was reshuffling. And in that reshuffle, the U.S. was losing ground. For foreign competitors, America's chaos wasn't a crisis. It was an opening. It began quietly, empty car lots, silent showrooms, and delays no one could explain. But behind the silence, a global shift was underway. Volkswagen promised lightning-fast delivery across Asia. Nissan slashed prices in China. And for the first time in decades, America didn't look like the powerhouse. It looked unstable, risky, and vulnerable. For ordinary people, the impact was brutal. In Lexington, Kentucky, teacher Marissa Daniels had saved for 2 years to buy a new SUV. When she finally arrived at the dealership, the manager could only whisper, "Delayed. 6 weeks, maybe 6 months." Across the nation, rows of cars vanished from lots. Prices soared overnight. Used cars even more than new ones. Buyers stood stunned. This wasn't a crash or a glitch. The steel was gone. Without it, there were no frames, no fenders, no future deliveries. The panic wasn't loud. It was quiet frustration. Handwritten "no vehicles available" signs appeared on locked dealership doors. Phone lines rang endlessly. Families desperate for replacements were told to wait months. Scarcity had become personal. But silence didn't last. Labor struck back. In Lordstown, Ohio, United Auto Workers President Lisa Baines stood before a sea of flags and furious workers. "This isn't just bad policy," she thundered. "This is betrayal." Crowds roared. Entire shifts showed up to rallies carrying VIN numbers of unfinished cars they never got to complete. Their message: no steel, no jobs, no future. That anger soon exploded on Capitol Hill. In a heated hearing, Representative Carla Jennings of Michigan held up a photo of a shuttered Chrysler plant. "This," she declared, "is what policy without planning looks like." Chaos followed: shouts, finger-pointing, threats to abandon trade agreements. But as lawmakers fought on camera, no solutions came. Only theater. And the public noticed. Then came Canada's knockout move. At 8 a.m. sharp, they imposed a 25% tariff, not on raw steel, but on American-made cars. Detroit was under siege. Plants, suppliers, and machine shops froze in place. Orders vanished. Layoffs began. Canada had shifted from cutting supply to blocking demand. The ripple spread everywhere. In Portland, skyscraper projects stopped as rebar prices spiked. In Tulsa, aerospace suppliers raised costs. In Austin, breweries shut canning lines as aluminum dried up. Steel wasn't just for cars, it was the backbone of modern life. And now it was unraveling. Frustration turned tribal. Viral Canadian videos declared, "We're not your warehouse anymore." American influencers pushed back. Built here, bought here. Flags, slogans, and hashtags replaced cooperation. A trade war had mutated into a culture war. Wall Street panicked. Auto stocks plunged, retirement funds shrank, and analysts whispered of systemic collapse. Traders called it rot in the core. For workers and families, it wasn't numbers. It was futures disappearing in real time. Then a leaked policy paper appeared. The end of flow. It declared globalization dead. The age of seamless supply chains was over. The future now belonged to resilience, nations building at home, stockpiling resources, duplicating industries to avoid collapse. France moved to localize batteries. Japan developed domestic alloys. America debated federal steel reserves. It wasn't just a response, it was a new blueprint. Because this wasn't just a trade war. It was a warning. And those who adapt won't just survive, they'll control the future. This was just the beginning. Hit that subscribe button and buckle up. Digital Garage has so much more in store.